There are 7 Democrats competing for their party's nomination for governor of Maine. The winner will be decided in the primary 4 weeks from today.
We're talking with all of the Democratic and Republican candidates for governor on 207. And with us tonight is Betsy Sweet, a lobbyist who lives in Hallowell. Betsy has helped run referendum and political campaigns, served as director of the Maine Women's Lobby. And here she is with us tonight on 207. Thanks so much for having
me. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, it's great.
Let's start with minimum wage, because you have said you want to raise Maine's minimum wage to $15 an hour. Our neighbors in New Hampshire, their minimum wage right now is $7.25 an hour. How do we compete with the state right next door if our minimum wage is double?
So I think as I travel the state of Maine, there is nobody in the state of Maine who believes that you should work 40 hours a week and not be able to make your ends meet, not be able to buy food or pay rent or pay for the roof over your head. So I think that people who get minimum wage, that money goes right back into the economy. They're not putting that money overseas. They're not putting it in a savings account or saving it. That money is being spent in our economy. So it actually grows the economy, and we see it everywhere. So I think as we see it raise here, it's going to happen all over the state. One of the things that's crazy right now is that we have such a worker shortage. Everywhere we go, there's not enough workers, and yet wages aren't rising. So that's just an anomaly in Maine, and we have to do something about it.
Let's continue to compare ourselves to New Hampshire for just a moment. New Hampshire, obviously no sales or income tax, and its per capita income is well above Maine's. So clearly it's outperforming us. How do we learn from our neighboring state?
Well, I think you have to look at all the numbers from New Hampshire. So their property taxes are really high, their corporate taxes are really high. If you take a look at the whole tax burden with New Hampshire, it's actually not quite so different as if you pick out certain ones. So I think, again, we have to look what's going to work for Maine and what Maine people need and what Maine people want. We have resources and incredible things in Maine that New Hampshire doesn't have, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to use our strengths. We have got to play to our strengths, and that's what we failed to do, I think, as a state.
Let's go back to that point, though. What is Maine, or what can Maine learn from a state that is doing better, a state where the average incomes are significantly higher?
Well, I think we have to pay people more. I think we see a lot of our businesses are not paying when businesses do better. In the last 8 years, Maine's economy has grown, and 65% of the increase in income has gone to the top 5, I think, or 6% of Maine. 65%. And the rest of it has gone to the bottom. The people who are making money at the top, that money is going, that's going into savings accounts, that's going into other things. It's not going into the economy. So we have to look at where people are spending that money. So I think we have to get new businesses. We have to have different kinds of businesses, higher technology businesses. We have to look at solar power and energy, renewable energy, I think, is a really lucrative place for us to look. So I think we have to look at the kinds of businesses and the numbers of businesses.
No one would argue with you that we want more businesses, we want good businesses, but the key question is, how do you attract them? And the governor can play a key role in that. So what would you say to the owner of a business who's trying to decide, should I expand my business by locating it in New Hampshire, or should I expand it by locating in Maine? What specifically would you say to that person to get them to come here?
I'd say, look at our workers. We have the best work ethic in the country. And what is it that you need? Look at what, I think we have to work on our energy costs. That's a problem in Maine. So we have to say, what can we do to help with energy costs? What can we do to help with worker training to make sure that we have the trained capacity, the kind of workers that businesses are looking for? Those are things that we have to do. And in the last 8 years, those resources for business, even though we're open for business, those resources have been cut. We have seen cuts to those things, and so we haven't kept up with what our businesses need. That's what business owners are telling me all over the state.
Let me ask you about something that's on your website. You say you want to reduce healthcare costs. Obviously, everybody wants to do that by promoting healthy living through sleep, exercise, nutritious food, and 3 free prescriptions. What does that mean, 3 free prescriptions?
So it actually goes with the segment you had before about yoga, right? So in Maine, if we would actually all take the first 3 free prescriptions, which is good, healthy, nutritious food, enough sleep, and exercise, like yoga or anything else, we could deal with some of the major diseases that Maine is suffering. Obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, stress. We do not encourage that either by example or by our policies. There's so many towns in our state that don't even have sidewalks. So even if you want to take a walk, you can't. It's not safe to do so. Trails. People want trails in their communities. better trail access. We need to publicize the Land for Maine's Future stuff so people get out and move and are outside. That would take care of a lot of the costs that we have already. And so we have to look at both providing health care, but also looking at reducing those costs. Then of course we have big pharma, we have to look at prescription drugs. There's a lot of ways to reduce those costs, but those first three are free.
One quick question, let's end on this note. Who is your favorite U.S. president in your lifetime?
In my lifetime, Barack Obama.
All right, that's the final word. Betsy Sweet, Democratic candidate for governor, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great.
We'll be back with more of 207 in just a moment.